Hello again, everybody. I am glad to be back on YouTube making camera review videos for the general public and for my eBay store. This camera I have today is an Asahi Pentax Spotmatic SP. This camera was released in the mid-1960s and was geared toward novices and amateur photographers. This is obviously a black brass version. There were two versions of this camera, the chrome version, which would look something like this, and the more desired black version that I have showcased here. This was geared toward professionals or intermediate photographers who wanted something more discreet. This color would not be as noticeable as something like this if you were to use it on the street. So without further ado, I'm going to showcase the lens. The lens is a very nice SMC, which stands for Super Multi-Coated Takumar 50mm f1.4 lens. This is an M42 screw mount lens. Pentax was really the only camera manufacturer that sold cameras in America that had this type of mount. There were a couple Russian manufacturers that had the same M42 mount. What you do to take off the lens is simply turn counterclockwise. And you can remove the lens from the throat mount on the camera itself. This is what you would call the throat, this piece here. I am going to first show you the different aperture settings on the lens. Before I show you that, I have to move this little dial here to automatic, which I am doing off camera. I will do on camera in a second. So as you can see the aperture blades in the middle, and there are no evidences of dust or oil in the lens itself or on the aperture blades. That was at f16. Now that's at 1.4, and you can see the motion. Very nice fluid motion. The lens has nice clicks. This is a newer type of lens. The older types had a completely metal focusing ring. This has a rubberized support for focusing. The serial number on this is 545-6250. I am not sure what that means about the year the lens itself was made. Cameras like this, back in the day, the lens didn't match the serial numbers. You could have bought the camera and the lens separately. So, now going from this angle to this angle, I'm going to turn the camera around like this, going from your left to your right. This is the rewind knob. This allows the film that has been spent and taken to be rewound back into its canister for development. You flip this lever out here and turn as the arrow indicates. So, clockwise. You pull up on the rewind crank to open the back of the camera. This is where you put your film, into this chamber here. You want to be extremely careful, and this is very important, to not touch the film plane. Anywhere in this area is called the no-no area. If you put your finger or your thumb or anything and press hard on this shutter, you will damage it, if not break it, rendering the camera broken and unusable. You would pull the film leader out, put it on one of these slits in the advance spool and make sure that the film holes line up with the sprocket holes in the take-up sprocket here. This is your film pressure plate. This does exactly as its name. It puts pressure on the film when it's loaded into the camera to reduce dust or air pockets on your film. You also want to check your light seals. The light seals are on the bottom portion, the top portion, and the side of the camera here. You can see that the foam is significantly degraded and almost non-existent. So this camera will need new light seals in order to take photos properly and as intended. You could use some black electrical tape along the sides here to block out any light leaks that might exist. But it's better to buy some foam online and cut it yourself and install it into the camera on your own. Moving from the right to the center, this is your pentaprism. This little window here is the viewfinder. And there's a series of mirrors and technology that reflects what's coming through the lens onto the mirror, which then shoots out into the viewfinder. So what you see in the viewfinder is exactly what the lens is seeing, thus exactly what will show up on your film. That is what this knob here is that I had to change earlier. We'll get into that in a second. So moving from the middle to your right is the shutter speed dial. This controls the time that the shutter in the mirror remains open. You want to use a higher shutter speed for faster moving objects, or a setting where it's a little bright and you want to balance out that light to get a correct exposure. You want to use slower shutter speeds for situations like flash photography, which, if you notice, the 60 notation has an X over it. The X is for your electronic flash. These cameras didn't automatically come with a hot shoe. You had to purchase them as an attachment, so this does not have any type of cold or hot shoe. A hot shoe means that there's an electric connection for an electronic flash. A cold shoe means that there is no electronic connection, and you would have to connect the flash to one of these ports here, and that's how you would take photos with a cold shoe flash. You also notice that there is a orange notation here that says ASA. That is your film speed. I have a box of Ilford film which says ISO 400. You want to make sure that the number on the film container matches the number on this selection window here. So if you notice, there's a little arrow and then an orange dot. You want to make sure the orange dot is aligned with the ISO number that you have selected. The terms ISO and ASA are certainly interchangeable, but ASA was the precursor to the ISO. The ASA is the American designation back then. ISO is the international version today. This is the most important button in any camera, the shutter button. This allows you to take a picture. This is threaded for a cable release, so if you would like to get into your own pictures, because the self-timer doesn't give you enough time to get into the shot yourself, you can stand with an attachment, click the shutter button using the cable release, and you'll have your picture. This is your advance lever. This advances the film, as seen here. You will also notice a counter here, which counts up your film. Let's go through the shutter speeds with the lens on the camera. So I'm going to go back to this selection here. You'll see this has a little rib to it. Right now it's in auto. Now it's in manual. This is technically your lens stop down feature. Most cameras feature the stop down selection on the body of the camera. This is a good example. This is a Minolta SRT 102. This is the stop down lever, or what's called the depth of field preview. So you have to keep it in auto mode if you want to do what I'm about to do, which is showcase the lens stop down after every picture taken. So this is at 1/1000th of a second shutter speed. Let me do that again. And again. Okay, now you can see the mirror and the aperture blade stop down. All right, this is 500th of a second, 1/250th, 1/125th of a second. And I should note, this camera is a little bit older and hasn't been used at all recently, so the slower shutter speeds, the mirror doesn't always return. This is 1/60th of a second, which is your flash sync speed. 1/30th, 1/15th, 1/8th, 1/4th, 1/2, 1 full second, and your bulb mode. In this mode, the aperture blades are stopped down, the mirror is open, and the shutter remains open until you depress your finger from the shutter button and everything resets. This is your self-timer here. Now this camera has a very healthy self-timer. I will demonstrate it for you now. Oops, I'm sorry, I apologize. To activate the self-timer, you have to press this button here. There we go. Perfect. That is a very healthy sounding self-timer. On the bottom here now, the final part, is the rewind button. Once you're done taking your film, once this counter reads either 24 or 36, you have to press this button down. Then you can do what I discussed earlier, which was rewind the film into the camera by moving the lever clockwise all the way until you hear a release. There will be a little tension at the end, and then you will have your film wound up, ready for development. Open the back of the camera, remove the film, and then take it to your nearest photo shop, which develops film. I also want to note that Walgreens, at least in my area, still develops film. They use Fujifilm's distribution website and locations to develop the film. I think you can go online. I'm not sure, but all of the times I've gone to Walgreens, I've done it in person. So my friends, this is an in-depth overview of the Asahi Pentax Spotmatic SP 35mm single lens reflex camera. I hope you all enjoyed, and please be on the lookout for more camera reviews in the future. Have a great day.